Have you ever felt like a chameleon, changing your colors to blend in, to please, to avoid displeasing? There's a part of us that yearns for acceptance, a need so profound that at times it leads us to camouflage who we truly are. Have you ever paused to consider how much of your authenticity you hide in your daily life? What if nature could show us a way out of this emotional labyrinth? Prepare to unravel the fear of being judged through one of nature's masters of adaptation, the chameleon. Let's embark on this journey of self-discovery together. The fear of being judged is, without a doubt, one of the most insidious, silent, and yet most controlling emotions that pervade the human experience. It doesn't manifest with shouts or explosions, but whispers insidiously, and its echoes reverberate deeply, shaping our actions, our words, our choices, and even our most intimate thoughts. It asks that uncomfortable knot in your throat that arises when you think of sharing a truly original idea or an authentic feeling, but you hesitate, paralyzed by the anticipation of disapproving glances, stifled laughs, or awkward silences. It's the forced smile we offer in response to a joke that, deep down, offends or saddens us, just to avoid being labeled too sensitive, a complainer, or lacking a sense of humor. It's the almost automatic choice of an outfit that in no way reflects our personal style, but which we know looks good for the occasion, thus avoiding any scrutiny or silent criticism. In the vast tapestry of our daily lives, this fear manifests in countless ways, often so intrinsic to our behavior that we don't even consciously perceive them. How many times have you found yourself vehemently agreeing with a point of view that, in the depths of your soul, you profoundly disagree with, just to avoid a draining confrontation or the risk of being seen as complicated, contrarian, or stubborn? In the professional environment, the fear of being judged can be a true paralyzer, preventing us from presenting that ambitious project that could revolutionize the company, fearing it might be ridiculed as utopian, naive, or out of touch with reality. It makes us recoil, opting for the safer path, the one that doesn't attract negative attention. In personal relationships, be they friendships, family ties, or romantic partnerships, this fear leads us to camouflage our true feelings, to pretend that everything is perfectly fine when our soul screams for help, just to maintain the illusion of being a perfect person, always happy or strong enough to handle anything. This fear is not merely limited to the direct and explicit criticism we receive. It feeds extensively on the anticipation of judgment. We become masters at predicting negative scenarios and imagining others' reactions with an almost cinematic richness of detail. And, preventively, we adapt. We act, in fact, as if there were a constant audience observing us, invisible, and merciless jury, ready to evaluate every step, every slip, every peculiarity that would make us unique. The cost of this constant performance is immeasurably high. We lose precious pieces of our authenticity, we suffocate our inner voice, we stifle our deepest desires. And often we painfully distance ourselves from who we truly are to fit into social molds that ultimately neither serve nor represent us. This incessant and exhausting pursuit of external validation and approval traps us in an invisible cage where the freedom to be fully ourselves becomes an unattainable luxury, and true deep and genuine connection with others is replaced by superficial interactions based on conformity and facade. In the vast and lush tropical forests of Madagascar, as well as in various regions of Africa and parts of Asia, dwells one of the most enigmatic, visually striking, and evolutionarily fascinating animals in the natural kingdom, the chameleon. This reptile, unique in its anatomy and behavior, is easily recognizable by its independently moving eyes, allowing it to observe two distinct points at once. By its sticky, ballistic tongue, capable of being projected at astonishing speed to capture prey in mere milliseconds, and by its peculiar, almost oscillating gait. However, its most legendary and globally celebrated characteristic is Undoubtedly, its almost magical ability to change color. Yet, it is crucial to understand that this ability far transcends simple camouflage for hiding from cunning predators or ambushing unsuspecting prey. The chameleon's impressive color change is not a simple trick, but a complex orchestration of biological and physiological processes. Yes, it masterfully uses it to blend perfectly with its environment, becoming practically invisible among rough tree trunks, dense foliage, and even in the colored sands of deserts and savannas. It is undeniably a primary survival strategy, a vital disguise against aerial predators like eagles and terrestrial ones like snakes. However, its skin surface is also a dynamic and expressive mirror of its emotional, physiological, and communicative state. A chameleon can alter its hue and skin patterns to express intense fear, stress, territoriality, dominance over a rival, submission, excitement, or even to attract a mate during the complex breeding season. Vibrant, intense colors and intricate patterns, for example, can indicate a healthy, dominant male ready to reproduce, signaling his strength to competitors, while darker, duller, or paler tones can communicate submission, illness, discomfort, or even an impending warning of danger. This extraordinary chromatic metamorphosis is orchestrated by specialized cells located in various layers of its skin, known as chromatophores. These cells contain different types of pigments, melanin, guanine, and carotenoids. The chameleon's ability to change color lies in its capacity to rapidly expand or contract these pigment cells, spreading or grouping the pigments under the precise command of its nervous system. This control is a direct response to a wide range of external stimuli, such as ambient light intensity temperature, and the color and texture of the substrate it is on, and crucially to internal stimuli. This means that the chameleon's color is not merely a passive, autonomous reaction to the external environment, but rather an active, instant, and complex expression of its inner being in relation to the world around it. Observing a chameleon is witnessing, in real time, the supreme art of adaptation, survival, and silent communication in its purest, most instinctive, and visually stunning form, a dance of colors that reveals the animal's soul. The correlation between the chameleon's adaptive behavior and the innate human tendency to adjust in the face of the oppressive fear of being judged is strikingly parallel, viscerally direct, and profoundly instinctive. Just as the chameleon, in its incessant pursuit of survival, adjusts the complexity of its skin to perfectly harmonize with the gnarled branch or vibrant leaf where it rests, we as humans in our own quest for acceptance and belonging frequently adjust our social skin, our observable behaviors, our expressed opinions, our life choices, and ultimately our very essence, to harmonize with the social environment that surrounds us. The chameleon changes from a vibrant light green to a grayish-brown to conceal itself from a predatory hawk patrolling the skies. We in turn change or soften our opinion about a movie, a book of music style, or a political stance to agree with a group of friends or colleagues, thus avoiding being labeled the odd one out, the one who doesn't get it, or the misfit. This behavioral camouflage is at its deepest essence a strategy of self-protection. For the chameleon, if it stands out too much, if its coloration betrays it, it becomes easy prey, a vulnerable spot in the ecosystem. For us, if we deviate too much from the established norm, we run the imminent risk of becoming targets of relentless criticism, public ridicule, social exclusion, or, at best, subtle but devastating glances of disapproval. The biological, primary, and irrefutable survival instinct of the chameleon directly echoes our own powerful social instinct of belonging. We deeply yearn to be accepted, to be part of a group, to be loved, understood, and valued in our individuality. And for this, we often suppress and conceal parts of ourselves that we deem inappropriate, strange, embarrassing, or unacceptable by the collective we wish to join. Consider the young entrepreneur who dreams of revolutionizing a market with a bold and unconventional idea, but ends up presenting a more conservative and safe business plan to appease investors who value tradition. Or the person who has an eccentric hobby, like collecting dragon miniatures, but hides this passion from their more serious colleagues to avoid being considered childish or weird. In each of these scenarios, and in countless others that permeate our existence, we are in essence mimicking the chameleon. We adjust our facade, our behavior, our expressions, and even the manifestation of our most genuine passions and interests to adapt to the social landscape around us, hoping that this adaptation will guarantee us security and acceptance. The crucial and somewhat tragic difference is that the chameleon does this out of a biological imperative for physical survival, an unnegotiable response to imminent threat, while we, as humans, often do it for social and emotional survival, sacrificing our individuality, our authenticity, and, paradoxically, our true happiness in the process. We thus become mutable chameleons, losing a bit of our original color, our inherent vibrancy, with each new adaptation imposed by the fear of others' judgment. The chameleon's extraordinary ability to visually adapt, changing its pigmentation in response to external and internal stimuli, is an intrinsic biological reflex, a sophisticated evolutionary response for survival in its ecosystem. In the human realm, while we cannot consciously change the color of our skin, the fear of being judged has equally profound roots, firmly anchored in our species' social psychology and evolutionary biology. From the dawn of humanity, in eras where life was brutal and precarious, acceptance and cohesion within the social group were absolutely crucial, not only for emotional well-being but for individual survival itself. Being ostracized, banished, or rejected by the tribe often meant facing the world's dangers alone. Predators, starvation, harsh weather, which frequently resulted in death. This ancestral programming, this deep need to belong and be accepted, still powerfully resonates in our modern brains, making us intrinsically sensitive to others' perceptions and opinions. One of the most important conceptual pillars explaining this sensitivity is the need to belong, a robust and widely accepted psychological theory proposed by psychologists Roy Baumeister and Mark Leary. They argue that human beings possess a fundamental and innate motivation to form and maintain a certain number of positive, lasting, and meaningful interpersonal relationships. This intrinsic need compels us, almost irresistibly, to actively seek social acceptance and to avoid rejection at all costs. The fear of judgment in this context acts as a highly sophisticated internal alarm system, a psychological brake that prevents us from deviating too much from social norms and what is considered acceptable by the collective, thus ensuring our vital share of belonging. Another psychological phenomenon intrinsically linked to our camouflage is social conformity. Classic and seminal studies such as Solomon Asch's insightful experiments on group conformity conducted in the 1950s vividly demonstrated how individuals are powerfully influenced and prone to adjust their perceptions, opinions, and consequently their behaviors to align with the majority, even when that majority is clearly and unequivocally wrong. This is not solely due to explicit, direct group pressure, but to the simple and powerful expectation of negative judgment that leads us to conform. We desperately want to avoid cognitive dissonance, the mental and psychological discomfort that arises from feeling different, isolated, or wrong in a social context. This need for social congruence and acceptance is analogous to the chameleon's biological logic, which adjusts its color to avoid detection by a predator. For humans, the predator may not have claws or teeth, but it manifests as painful social exclusion, biting criticism, public shame, or emotional isolation. Our brain, with its millennia-old programming, actively seeks social harmony and the security that belonging offers, and behavioral camouflage emerges as one of the most efficient, though sometimes costly, ways to achieve this social invisibility and ensure our acceptance in the group, however painful that may be for the full manifestation of our true essence. Observing the fear of being judged in action in daily life is like witnessing a gallery of different chameleons adapting in a wide range of environments, each employing its own subtle or explicit strategy of camouflage. Consider these mini-stories that vividly and relationally mirror this human reality. The family reunion and the silent activist. Mariana, a vibrant and passionate university student, has always stood out for her progressive political views and her ardent engagement in social and environmental causes. She actively participates in debates, writes articles, and eloquently defends her convictions. However, when she returns for the holiday season to her family's home in a small rural town, where the vast majority of her relatives hold markedly conservative and traditional views, Mariana undergoes a subtle yet noticeable metamorphosis. She suddenly becomes apolitical, avoids any mention of her protests, her critical theory readings, or the academic debates that fascinate her so much. She even laughs, a hollow and unconvinced laugh, at jokes that internally bother or upset her deeply. Instead of confronting or expressing her true views, she skillfully and diplomatically changes the subject whenever the conversation approaches controversial topics. Her parents, unaware of the complex social mask she adopts, proudly comment that she is calmer or more mature, without realizing that Mariana is actually changing her colors to avoid a draining family conflict, the judgment of being the black sheep, the rebel without a cause, or the activist of the family. She camouflages herself to maintain superficial harmony and ensure the approval of her loved ones, sacrificing the manifestation of her authentic voice and passion. The new job and the contained creative. Joe, an exceptionally talented and naturally irreverent graphic designer, with a vibrant personal style and a mind teeming with outside-the-box ideas, has just been hired by a renowned advertising agency. However, this agency has a notoriously formal, hierarchical, and rigid corporate culture. Although his portfolio was full of audacious works, Joe quickly realizes that his new colleagues dress impeccably and soberly, speak in a polite and corporate manner, and prefer structured meetings, averse to spontaneous interruptions or jokes. To fit in and be quickly accepted and crucially well regarded by bosses and colleagues, Joe starts wearing tailored suits every day, curbing his colloquial language and suppressing his more audacious and disruptive ideas in meetings, presenting only what is considered safe, conventional, and expected. He becomes a more acceptable and visibly less authentic version of himself, fearing that his originality or laid-back style might be interpreted as a lack of professionalism, immaturity, or even a threat to the agency's established order. His inner art gives way to outer conformity. The friend circle and the hidden pleasure. Lavra is an outgoing, charismatic, and quite popular university student. But she harbors a secret and intense hobby. She loves complex fantasy video games, strategy games, and immersive virtual worlds, a universe that the vast majority of her friends consider childish, nerdy, antisocial, or a waste of time. When she's with her social circle, Lavra never mentions her gaming marathons, invents elaborate and convincing excuses not to go out on nights when she prefers to delve into her virtual adventures, and even laughs along with a pang of sadness when her friends make generic jokes about gamers or people who live on the computer. She deeply fears that if she reveals this genuine passion, which brings her so much joy, she will be labeled immature, strange, uninteresting, or worse, excluded from invitations to parties and social gatherings that make up her social life. Her camouflage here is active omission, strategic silence, and dissimulation about a significant, enjoyable, and identity-defining part of her life, all to preserve her carefully constructed image and ensure her acceptance and belonging within the group. In each of these examples, and many others we could cite, The person instinctively acts like a chameleon, adjusting their color and behavior to blend into the social environment, to go unnoticed, and to avoid the invisible predator of judgment, disapproval, or exclusion. The cost, however, is invariably high. The gradual loss of one's own identity, a slow and painful fading of the vibrant colors that make each of us unique, special, and truly authentic. The irony is that by trying to fit in, we end up losing the chance to be seen and loved for who we truly are. The chameleon's journey, though intrinsically linked to its instinctive survival in the animal kingdom, offers us profound, paradoxical, and surprisingly relevant lessons about the art of adaptation and, crucially, about the vital importance of knowing, honoring, and expressing oneself. If the chameleon utilizes its extraordinary ability to change color as a powerful tool, to protect itself from predators, and to communicate authentically with others of its species within its ecosystem, humans in turn often employ this psychological camouflage to hide silence, themselves, and fit in predetermined molds, diluting their essence and individuality in the process. However, the true and undeniable beauty of a chameleon lies precisely in its ability to be authentic in its adaptation, a true and dynamic reflection of its inner state in relation to the environment. And what about us, human beings, in our complex social dance? My understanding, on a deeper level, that our insistent and often oppressive fear of being judged is in large part an echo of an ancestral instinct for belonging, a defense mechanism that was, in a remote past, vital for our survival as a species. We can begin to disarm this psychological trap that imprisons us. The first and perhaps most crucial lesson we can extract from this analogy is deep and continuous self-awareness, the ability to perceive and recognize the exact moments when we are actively changing our colors, purely out of fear of rejection or an unbridled craving for approval, and not out of a genuine, conscious choice aligned with our deepest values. Ask yourself honestly and gently, am I acting, speaking, or dressing this way because it truly resonates with who I am and what I genuinely believe? Or am I doing it because I fear what others will think of me if I am different, if I am truly myself? This simple yet powerful question is a fundamental catalyst for awakening and for the beginning of true transformation. The second lesson is the radical acceptance of vulnerability. Like the chameleon, we are multifaceted beings with a complex and unique range of colors, hues, and tones within us. Recognizing and accepting with an open heart that not all of these colors will please everyone all the time is a gigantic and liberating step towards authenticity. The courage to show our true tonal range, our deepest passions, our most sincere opinions, our peculiarities that make us unique, and even our most human and vulnerable imperfections is what paradoxically allows us to form deeper, more authentic, and truly meaningful connections with others. When we stop excessively camouflaging ourselves, when we stop hiding behind facades, we tacitly give permission for others to do the same, creating spaces of greater truth, empathy, and mutual acceptance. Authenticity breeds authenticity. Think again of the chameleon that in crucial moments of courtship and reproduction casts aside its protective camouflage and displays the most vibrant, bold, and eye-catching colors of its skin to attract a suitable mate, even if this temporarily makes it more visible and, therefore, more vulnerable to predators. It takes the risk for the sake of something greater, for the sake of its continuation and purpose. Similarly, finding and valuing the people and environments that celebrate and embrace your original color, your innate essence, and not the one you strive to project or fabricate, is one of life's most rewarding and liberating experiences. True power and true security do not reside in being invisible to others, judgment and blending into the crowd, but rather in being visible in your totality, in all your colors, hues, imperfections, and singularities, and still feeling secure, accepted, and profoundly loved, starting crucially with yourself. May your true colors, in their fullness and beauty, henceforth be your greatest strength, your most powerful tool for connection, and your deepest pride.